ला हौल वला कुव्वता इल्ला बिल्लाहिल अज़ीम। औज़ु बिल्लाहि मिनश शैतानिर रजीम। बिस्मिल्लाहिर रहमानिर रहीम। इन्नल्लाहा व मलाइकतहु युसल्लूना अलन नबी या अय्युहल्लज़ीना आमनू सल्लु अलैहि व सल्लिमू तस्लीमा। अल्लाहु अकबर, अल्लाहु अकबर, अल्लाहु अकबर, अल्लाहु अकबर। अशहदु अन ला इलाहा इल्लल्लाह। अशहदु अन ला इलाहा इल्लल्लाह। अशहदु अन्ना मुहम्मदर रसूलुल्लाह सल्लल्लाहु अलैहि व आलिहि वसल्लम। अशहदु अन्ना मुहम्मदर रसूलुल्लाह सल्लल्लाहु अलैहि व आलिहि वसल्लम। अशहदु अन्ना अमीरल मोमिनीन व इमामल मुत्तकीन अलियन वलियुल्लाह। अशहदु अन्ना अमीरल मोमिनीन व इमामल मुत्तकीन अलियन हुज्जतुल्लाह। हय्या अलस सलाह, हय्या अलस सलाह, हय्या अलल फलाह, हय्या अलल फलाह, हय्या अला खैरिल अमल, हय्या अला खैरिल अमल। अल्लाहु अकबर, अल्लाहु अकबर। ला इलाहा इल्लल्लाह, ला इलाहा इल्लल्लाह। अल्लाहुम्मा अजल क़ल्बी बारम व अमरी सारम व रज़्क़ी दारम व लाद बियारम व जल्नी इंदा क़ब्र नबिय्यिका मुहम्मदन मुस्तक़रम व क़रार बिरहमतिका या अरहमर राहिमीन। अल्लाहुम्मा सल्लि अला मुहम्मद।
औज़ु बिल्लाहि मिनश शैतानिर रजीम। बिस्मिल्लाहिर रहमानिर रहीम। अल्हम्दुलिल्लाहिल्लज़ी कान मौजूदन क़ब्ल हुदूसिल अशिया व यबक़ा बअद फ़नाइल अशिया तफ़र्रद बिल अव्वलिय्यति वल क़िदम व वसम कुल्ल शैइन मअदाहु बिल फ़नाइ वल अदम। كما قال عز شأنه كل شيء هالك إلا وجهه وكل نفس ذائقة الموت وقال كل من عليها فان ويبقى وجه ربك ذو الجلال والإكرام سبحان من لا يخفى عليه اختلاف النيات ولا يعزب عنه مآسي العباد في الخلوات سبحان الله الذي منه خلقة العباد وإليه المعاد فمن يعمل مثقال ذرة خيرا يره ومن يعمل مثقال ذرة شرا يره نشهد أن لا إله إلا هو الملك الذي لا ينازع في ملكه ولا يضاد في حكمه يعذب من يشاء بما يشاء كيف يشاء ويرحم من يشاء بما يشاء كيف يشاء تعذيبه المسيئين عدل وعفو تفضل ونشهد أن محمدا سيد المرسلين وخير المبشرين والمنذرين صلى الله عليه وآله الهداة المهديين من ركب سفينته النجاة واهتدى ومن تخلف عنها ضل فغرق وهوى أوصيكم عباد الله بالاعتصام بالتقوى فإنه حبل متين وأروة الوثقى فقال الله تبارك وتعالى وقوله الحق وهو أصدق قائلين بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم كتب عليكم الصيام كما كتب على الذين من قبلكم لعلكم تتقون صدق الله العلي العظيم اللهم صل على السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. I begin by advising myself and all of you to adopt the taqwa of Allah as is the best of provisions. This is the last Friday before the beginning of the holy month of Ramadan. And as I have done in the past, every year pretty much on this final Friday of the month of Shaban, I usually discuss some of the words from the khutbah of our Holy Prophet, Hazrat Muhammad Mustafa sallallahu alaihi wasallam, which he had given, in the last week of Shaban, on the last Friday of Shaban. And these words, of course, are pearls of wisdom for us when it comes to how we should prepare. It's sort of like a reminder every year, and that's why I have chosen to repeat it pretty much almost every year. Of course, every time you read these words, either from Kalamullah or Kalam of Rasulullah, you always find something new, divine interventions, or you find something new brought to you, and some new doors are explored and new pathways are given to you. It's not like any other book which you read once or twice and nothing really increases in you after you read it once or twice. But when you read Kalamullah, every time you read, it brings this refreshness to you. It brings this, broadens your spectrum and the methods of thinking, and opens up your mind. So that's why, similar to the fact is the Kalam of Masumin. This ayat, inshallah, which we will be hearing more when the month of Ramadan, inshallah, begins, is from Surah Baqarah 183, which I will focus only the last portion of, where Allah says, لَعَلَّكُمْ تَتَّقُونَ, so that you may attain consciousness of divine guidance. A lot of times we do get lost in the physical aspect of this fasting, the preparation for this fasting, get-togethers with family and friends, although it might be limited. In fact, it was limited last year, and maybe a little bit better this year than it was last year, because this is the second Ramadan during pandemic. But there's a better feeling, I guess, amongst the people. It's not similar to what we had, the uncertainty last year around this time, where we were still scrambling for answers. This year, we have answers, and majority of the people who have gone through the concept and the process of vaccination. And so easing out of going back to being normal again. So you might see an upward trend in people's invitations to iftar, but I would still suggest that, while that you can't stop that, make sure that you are safe, and make sure that you, practice all of the safety guidelines when you are visiting someone. If you have vaccinated, fully vaccinated, good, but still practice all the other guidelines that are provided as far as social distancing and all that is concerned. So coming back to, because we get caught up in all these things, that are from iftar to sahri to getting together to all of that stuff. Majority of the time, the inner concept, the spiritual aspect of it is sort of phased out. It's not lost completely, because one of the benefits of fasting is that whether you think about it or not, it is spiritually uplifting. I think we mentioned it before and established it before as well. This is one ibadat where you really don't brag. Like if anyone really bragged about any other ibadat, you understand it. For example, child might brag. Well, children brag even for other things, but I'm saying as adults, they might brag about certain other ibadat. But to brag about fasting really doesn't make any sense, because you are putting yourself through a difficult, day of not eating and refraining from drinking and all that stuff. So when you are physically depriving yourself, you really don't have the mindset of bragging about it. Whereas someone might pray and brag about it, right? Someone might give alms and brag about it. Someone might perform other ibadat and brag about it. But when it comes to fasting, you rarely see, aside from the kids maybe, they might say, oh, I fasted today and whatnot. Nothing wrong when they are bragging about it, but as we get older. So we see that a lot of time that this is one ibadat, that when you even don't even think about the spiritual aspect of it, it is giving you that spiritual uplifting automatically without having put any thought to it. But if you were to put some thoughts to it, then just imagine the wonders that it may cause to you. So therefore, few things that I wanted to focus. This is how the Creator defined the purpose of the month of fasting. Every religious community follows a tradition of fasting in different ways. Some fast for 40 days, abstain from food. Some fast for a week. Some fast for days, and some fast for even just a day. The purpose of fasting in Islam is to rejuvenate and energize their commitment to divine values that secure peace and justice and dignity for every human being. So how do you get these things out of this? By fasting, peace, justice, dignity, how do you derive these lessons out of merely fasting? The month-long fasting has three primary dimensions. Number one, self-improvement. We all know that. One of the main purposes of fasting is what? Building self-improvement. Nobody disagrees with that. While we fast, we abstain from some physical things, but we also abstain from some of those spiritual things which might cause decline in our spirituality. So we actually incline more toward things which might uplift us spiritually. So self-improvement is something which I may not even have to elaborate. Number two, community relation building. That is also one of the primary dimensions of this month-long fasting. Now, last year we didn't have that much, but you understand what it means to have this community relation building, that every day when you have people come in large numbers, how it shows this unification, regardless of who, where, what, and when. People standing side by side and praying and worshiping and breaking their iftar, and that concept is there. And thirdly, identifying with social issues. So some might say, well, how does that play into, or what is the role of that? For personal improvement, I'll go through each one quickly, inshallah. Abstaining from food and water for a specific period, controlling your intimate desires with your spouses from sunrise to sunset, and disciplining oneself in situations that lead to anger, for example, and suppressing your anger and controlling. If you might have said something in ordinary days, you don't say it while you're fasting, or doing something similar to that, refraining from gossiping or backbiting, lustful desires and ideas, jealousy, lying, all of these things. That's for your personal improvement. Again, as I said, this is self-explanatory. It does not really require much, although Rasulullah heavily emphasizes on this aspect in his khutbah. So I'll point out towards that as well. Number two, community relations. Building requires that those with means and resources address the needy and the disadvantaged Muslims' needs. So that's where a community comes in together, plays a vital role. While this fast and the purpose of it is that we understand from the kalam of our 11th Imam, Imam Hassan Askari alayhi salatu wasalam, he uses the word massal ju', so that aghniya, the rich, may understand what poor or less fortunate people go through as far as hunger is concerned. Now, alhamdulillah, here this might not be the case amongst our community members, but you see the footage from around the globe, how people are suffering and going through hunger, famine, and all that stuff. So masal ju', Imam says, by fasting, you face and you feel a little bit, albeit to only for 15, 16 hours, what these people go through. And then when you bring it more local to yourself and you find out that there are people, while you are enjoying a full table full of iftar, some people don't even have that. Some people, very bare minimum that they can even afford to go ahead and put in front of them, while they're still obligated to fast and perform this duty. Identifying with society requires involvement in causes of social justice and dignity-related issues facing the society at large. It is a refresher program for the community to follow a comprehensive regimen to convince oneself and the people around that divine guidance is beneficial to all. This is where it's easy to open up your gates, and we've done that in the past. While pre-pandemic time, we were able to open up the gates and doors to non-Muslims to come and break the fast with us, and even intra-faith, people of the other sects in Islam to come and be family with us and part with us in this opening of the fast. This pattern of observing the month of fasting is visible in the tradition of Rasulullah as well. He divided his time of worshiping, reflecting on divine guidance, helping the poor in the community, and inspiring non-believers to understand their conditions for a better life. So there were all these sort of people that existed in the time of Rasulullah as well, and he reached out to all of them. So if we do that today, we're only following the sunnah of Rasulullah. And if anyone says to you, why bother doing all of these things? Simple answer is Sirat of Rasulullah, tradition of Rasulullah, sunnat of Rasulullah. In the United States, the Muslim community is diverse and from different ethnic backgrounds. The prophetic approach can enable it to become a cohesive and stable community for its growth and make constructive contributions to society, as many Muslims are already doing that. Through philanthropy, they are making an impact on the society. The community is active in making efforts for individual self-improvement, however, still lacks a cohesive and organized effort in community building and identifying with the social issues that are around us. So in each city or area covered by an Islamic center or masjid, Imam Barga, a list of needy families would help streamline not only the general donations like sadaqah and the khums or zakatul fitra that we receive at the end of and the conclusion of Ramadan, but also channelize the resources to disperse them appropriately. And alhamdulillah, with the efforts of many of our community members and our board and Masjid-e-Ali, we've been able to accomplish that in the past few years through the help of people like yourself to go out and reach out to those who are in need. And because it is also a matter of self-esteem and self-honor and integrity. A lot of time people won't even come forward if they are sort of struggling and in need. But when they approach an entity like a masjid or Imam Barga or an institution, there really isn't any fear of approaching, because they know that their self-interest and integrity is safeguarded and whatnot. So therefore, on social issues, the community can organize interfaith and local neighborhood breaking of fasting ceremonies to introduce itself to others. This is where you'll be able to introduce some of the social issues. The prophetic model is easy to follow and beneficial to all. Let us hope that this month of fasting helps us focus on developing a genuine consciousness of the divine guidance that revolves around social justice and dignity. Therefore, I chose the beginning part to address that before I get actually into the words of Rasulullah. When you look at this khutbah of the Prophet that he gave on the last Friday of Shaban, He divided his khutbah into a few parts. First part talks about being the guest of Allah and how even your ordinary actions are worth a lot more than they would be in normal days, right? So an ordinary action is now worth something that you can't even comprehend. Second, hunger and the thirst in Qiyamah. It sort of gives you an idea what to expect over there. Fast through your eyes and ears, not just through your bellies and your desires. Being kind to orphans. The concept of dua and the concept of tawbah is mentioned in this khutbah. And then thawab of doing iftar and providing iftar to others. That's why I think that's one aspect of our subcontinent community, which I'm sure exists in the Iranian and the Arab communities as well, because I have witnessed that as well while living there. But we find in our subcontinent community where a lot of these iftar parties take place, and primary purpose behind it is because of the emphasis laid down by Rasulullah on providing the iftar. Good character, being kind, and doing sila rahim. What good is it that you don't even invite your own family members, your relatives? You want to have iftar, but you don't want to invite your own brother, your own sister, your own relatives. Reward of wajib and mustahab acts of worship and salat. Reward of reciting the Quran and salawat. So that's again one aspect which I think majority of our community does follow. As far as the recitation of Quran is concerned, they make an extra effort to go out of their way to do that. And the best of the actions. Prophet highlights all of these things in under these topics. So inshallah, in the next 4 or 5 minutes, I'll cover as many as I can. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. The first is being guest of Allah and the elevation of your ordinary actions. Rasulullah said, this is the month in which you are invited as the guests of Allah. And now you're also invited as the guest of Allah, and He you are made to be, in this month of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, amongst those who are Ahlul Karama. And you are, the one who are honorable, the one who are given this honor. Now imagine when you are invited by some big personality, let's say a president of a country invites you on a personal invitation, or you get invited by a marja taqleed, for example, or even something lower than that, because that would be the peak of all of that. But someone who's important, someone who's influential, not primarily because of their fame or anything, but the fact that you are now going to be sitting next to that person. For example, I remember the time when we went for ziyarat with many of you to Iraq, and I got the chance to take our Zaireen to meet Ayatollah Sistani. And when we went, it was a private meeting with him. He sat in that famous chair of his that you've seen him in the pictures, and the same sofa, and I sat right next to him. If you've seen the recent visit of Pope, how Ayatollah Sistani was sitting with the Pope. So basically removed Pope, and I was sitting there in Pope's place. And I sat there with Ayatollah Sistani holding his hand and talking to him and translating what people were saying, asking their questions for 15 minutes. So I felt, honored being in that presence and holding on to his hand and sitting with him and speaking, having a conversation. So that's a matter of pride for me. So now imagine that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is your host. Over there, this marja was your host. This president was your host. Now Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is your host. Just imagine the magnitude of that and then understand what it means. So he says, not only that you are the guest of Allah, but the elevation of your amal, that is also very important. That the ordinary actions that you do, which you don't even pay attention to, he said, no, those actions are also worthwhile. There's a value attached to those actions, such as, you know this better than me, even your anfasukum fihi ibadah, wa anfasukum fihi tasbih, wa nawmukum fihi ibadah. Your sleep in it becomes ibadat, and your breathing in it becomes glorification and the tasbih of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So these actions, which are very minute, become what? Elevated. Hunger and the thirst of Qiyamah. We haven't seen Qiyamah, we've only heard about it. So, well, when you fast, and you go through long days of the month of Ramadan, well, although now it's coming backwards, so every year we lose 11 days, it's going to be shorter and shorter days. In the next 5-6 years, it will actually be the shortest days of Ramadan in our lives. Maybe 7-8 years, maybe. By the time when it comes in the month of December, it'll be the shortest of the days. But nonetheless, for 10 hours, 15 hours, you deprive yourself and you feel this hunger. This is sort of like a reminder of what to expect in Qiyamah. He says, وَاذْكُرُوا بِجُوعِكُمْ وَعَطْشِكُمْ فِيهِ جَوْعَ يَوْمِ الْقِيَامَةِ. Remember the hunger and the thirst of the day of Qiyamah with your hunger and thirst today. So this is sort of like a practice for you. This is just a flavor, taste of it. So just so that you can see what to expect over there. Fast through your eyes. Again, this is something which I don't need to explain further, elaborate. Most important aspect of getting that taqwa, لَعَلَّكُمْ تَتَّقُونَ. Someone said, well, Ayat al-Quran says, you become muttaqi. I've been fasting for 40 years, 50 years, 30 years. I don't really see the signs of piety in me. Does that mean the ayat is lacking something? No, ayat is correct. You only fasted from the physical aspect of fast. You only fulfilled the physical requirements of fast by abstention from things which break your fast. But you fail to fast through your eyes, through your ears, through your heart. When you're able to fast through your eyes, through your ears, and through your heart, then you will see the concept of taqwa, the concept of piety, and God-fearing come into you. Being kind to orphans, that's something which should be done on a regular basis. But especially during the month of Ramadan, it says, show compassion to the orphans of people, so compassion may be shown to your orphans. This Urdu mein kehte hain jaisi karni waisi bharni, right? The way you do with things with others, it'll be done to you as well. So if you're kind to others' orphans today, people will be kind to your orphans today. By means of that, orphans that, inshallah, you live a long life and you pass away at an age where your children are all grown up, but nonetheless, they're still orphans when father passes away, even if it is at a very, old age. It says, people will pay respects to your orphans when you have paid respect to their orphan. Thawab of iftar. Again, this is something which does not require further explanation. The Prophet says, one who gives iftar to a fasting person during this month will be like the one who has freed someone who has been freed of his past sins, and it's like someone who has freed a slave and his past sins are forgiven. So this was a big thing back in the day, to free a slave. It was not an easy thing to do. So Rasulullah gave example to that. Like today, it'd be like, getting rid of something which is highly important that you can't live without. That would be the example today. So some people got up and said, oh, Rasulullah, we don't have the means to provide for others. How do we do that? Prophet said, it doesn't mean that you provide a full table full of food with the different courses of meals sitting on it. No. Even if it's one piece of date or a sip of water that you provide, that a person breaks their fast, that is enough for you to attain that status. Good character and being kind and sila rahim. He says, Ayyuhan nas man hassana minkum. Oh, who has more, oh, who you believe, or the people who has good morals and akhlaq during this month will be able to pass the sirat on the day and his feet will not slip. One who takes less work from his servants, Allah will accept less from him as well. So of course, again, the concept of servants might not be relevant, but they're subordinates, people who work under you, right? Be lenient with them. Don't overburden them with all the work that they already have to do. Overburden them because you don't want to do anything and you relax. You say, if you are lenient with them today, Allah will be lenient with you tomorrow. If you take less work from them, less work in the sense that, whatever is required of them to do, they'll do. But showing and appreciating them every time they do something out of the way, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will also be, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will be content with whatever little that you present to him tomorrow. Reward of wajib and the mustahab, it says, whoever performs a recommended prayer in this month, Allah will keep the fire of hell away. And whoever performs an obligatory prayer, Allah will reward him with these 70 prayers that are worth of that in any other month. So again, it's just the elevation of your already ibadat that you perform on a regular basis. Because it's a different time, it's a different environment altogether, and therefore everything is doubled or tripled or quadrupled, and therefore you should definitely take advantage. Reward of reciting the Quran, it says, and whoever praise Allah during this month will have his load lightened on the day of measure. He who recites one verse of Holy Quran will be given the rewards of reciting the entire Quran in any other month. So if you recite one ayat of Quran in Ramadan, it equals to the entire Quran in the month of Shawwal, or in the month of Rajab, or in the month of Jumah al-Ula, or other months for that matter. One ayat. But of course, the recommendation is that you recite, on daily basis, and this sort of becomes a habit for you to continue on reciting. And I'll conclude the best of the actions. At this point, when Rasulullah mentioned all of these things, Amir al-Mu'mineen, who was sitting amongst the audiences, he got up and he asked Rasulullah, "O Rasulullah, ma afdalul a'mal fi hadha ash-shahr?" What is the best of the actions? You mentioned a lot of things. Let's summarize it. What is the best of the actions that we can do in this month? You've mentioned a lot of things. فقال يا أبا الحسن أفضل الأعمال في هذا الشهر الورع عن محارم الله. When Amir al-Mu'minin asked him, what is the best of the actions in this month? Prophet replied, O Abu Hassan, or Ali, best of the actions in this month is to avoid which is made haram by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Did not give a lengthy, philosophical, difficult, to understand answer. Very simple. A lot of time when people went up to some of the Maharaja asking for them to give them some sort of advice, they said, well, avoid haram, perform your wajibat. I was like, that's it. I was expecting something philosophical, something, very deep. It's very shallow. He said, when we came back and we thought over it, he said, yeah, that's something which we are not even able to do. That to avoid haram and to be able to perform the obligation. So this was the gist of what Rasulullah had given as the khutbah on the last Friday of the month of Shaban. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that He gives us ability to ponder over these words, make us follow them, and to be able to get ready for this holy month of Ramadan. In Nahsan al-Hadith, وَأَبْلُ الْمُوْزَى كِتَابُ اللَّهِ وَأَعُوذُ بِاللَّهِ مِنَ الشَّيْطَانِ الرَّجِيمِ بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والعصر إن الإنسان لفي خسر إلا الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات وتواصوا بالحق وتواصوا بالصبر. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله الذي لا إله إلا هو الحليم الكريم غافر الذنب وقابل التوب وهو الغفور الرحيم سبحان من سبقت رحمته غضبا ووسط اليدين بالرحمة سبحان من لم يكلف نفسا إلا دون وسعها وفان السيئات لم يجاز بها وسبحان من لا يستاذن معصية بعده إلا كرما وجودا ولا كثرة الذنوب إلا فهو سوف نشهد أن لا إله إلا هو لطوف للعباد بجود ولا عباد المظلمين بحلم ونشهد أن محمدا نبيه وحبيبه سيد المرسلين وشفيع المظلمين بعثه رحمة للعالمين صلى الله عليه وآله على قدم رقم الله في محكم كتابه بالصلاة على نبيه وحبيبه فقال تعليما لكم وتشريفا ليس فيه إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما اللهم صل على سيد المرسلين وشفيع المظلمين نبينا محمد صلى الله عليه وآله وعلى إمام المسلمين وقائد الغر المحجلين أمير المؤمنين علي بن أبي طالب وعلى سيدة نساء العالمين وبذات خاتم النبيين سيدتنا فاطمة بنت رسول الله وعلى الحسن المجتبى والحسين الشهيد لكربلاء علي بن الحسين ومحمد بن علي وجعفر بن محمد وموسى بن جعفر وعلي بن موسى ومحمد بن علي وعلي بن محمد والحسن بن علي عليهم الصلاة والسلام اللهم صل على مولانا صاحب الزمان ما هي آثار البدع والطغيان خادم أبنية الشرك والنفاق حاسد الفور والبغي والشقاق صلوات الله وسلامه عليه وعلى آبائه الكرام اتصلت الليالي والأيام اللهم عجل فرجا وسهل مخرجا واكحل ناظرنا بنظرة منا إليه واجعلنا من المستشهدين بين يديه وتفضل على أمراء المؤمنين بمزيد التوفيق والازدياد الإقبال ونوف الدرجات اللهم افعل بنا ما أنت أهل ولا تفعل بنا ما نحن أهله بجاه محمد وآله المعصومين صلوات الله عليهم أجمعين. اللهم اجعلنا ممن يذكر فتنفع الذكر ان الله يأمر بالعدل والإحسان وإيتاء ذي القربى وينهى عن الفحشاء والمنكر والبغي يعظكم لعلكم تذكرون